Special notice. This was written by Australian Brad Matthews, and I know that Canada has the same laws regarding its banks. Thank you, Janet, for passing this on. It would be logical to assume that other DS banks operate by the same rules, in the States as well as other DS-run countries. I'll link the article in the description, but here's the first part of it. Says Brad, I am not a financial advisor, but I do believe I have an obligation to at least make people aware of an incredibly pernicious act that the Australian government has quietly perpetrated against all Australians. It was sneakily pushed through Parliament on the 14th of February 2018, with just 7 senators present. Passed on a voice vote, it bears the Orwellian title, Financial Sector Legislation Amendment, Crisis Resolution Powers and Other Measures, Bill 2017. What is this horrendous new law? It has been referred to as the ARPA Bail-in Law, the Crisis Resolution Bill, or just Australia's Bail-in Law. Referred to, that is, by the half a dozen or so companies in Australia who have bothered to report on it. I was shocked how little came up when I googled it. My sarcastic comment, amazing, isn't it? To anyone who does find it, it's being sold as crisis resolution. Which obviously means it's good and just. After all, what kind of scoundrel would be opposed to resolving a crisis? Essentially, legislation has been passed to use, read, steal, reappropriate, seize, spend, investments and potentially deposited funds, the balance of your own savings account, to make insolvent banks solvent again. My comment, I hope they're not depending on me 'cause I keep my savings at home. It's safer there. Fewer crooks. This is a scam of monumental magnitude. It is pure evil. I am not dramatizing the significance of this. The Citizens Electoral Council of Australia even describes it as such. Bail-in is the bankers' scam developed after the 2008 crash, to enable banks to continue the wild speculation that caused the financial crisis, but cover their gambling losses by seizing the savings of unsuspecting mum and dad investors and even depositors. Everywhere it has been applied, it has ruined savers and destroyed confidence in banks. What does bail-in mean? Bail-in means bail out, particularly the banks sinking ships. Bail-in is a great big bankster scam. Historically, many banks have been legally required to separate depositor funds, your money, from the money they use to gamble and speculate on the stock market. By the way, banks don't speculate on the stock market, Brad. They're in bed with the people who control the stock market. The problem with the uninformed is that they believe there's some honesty in the system. There isn't. It's based on deception, our deception. He continues, in the US this was known as Glass-Steagall, but that was repealed in 1999. Recently, many smart, and evil, banksters convinced governments in various countries that, in the event of failure or catastrophic loss, they can just use your money to cover the debt. This innovation is an alternative to using taxpayer funds via a government bailout. It saves the government face because taxpayers aren't directly paying for it via taxation, thus the bad press is confined to the particular bank, affected. Historically, banks that have exercised these new measures, such as Cyprus, more on this below, have seized the investment funds of small businesses, that is to say, mum and dad investors. However, your own savings account is equally unsecured. And where do you think they'll turn if they need more money to stay afloat? Why would they want to destroy confidence in themselves, you ask? 1. Because all the big banks are in on this. Which means it's unlikely that the fallout could be isolated to just a few of the institutions. If it were, people could just change to banks operating more respectably and honestly. With no alternatives, there's little threat to losing customers. Even if one bank fails particularly hard and does lose customers, they've lost no money because you and every other customer paid for their losses. That leaves them in a much better position. Perhaps they can relaunch under a new name without ever having to declare bankruptcy. Yes, good point, Brad. They make the laws to suit themselves.